Good day, student. You are welcome to history class. Today, we are going to discuss British system of colonialism or government in Nigeria. I repeat, our topic for today is British system of colonialism or government in Nigeria. So, the major objective of this lesson is that at the end of the lesson, you should be able to know the British system of government in Nigeria, as well as that particular system of government that the British used to govern Nigeria after the conquest of Nigeria by her. So let us start. When we are talking about British system of colonialism or government in Nigeria, it has to do with the system of government used or adopted by Britain to rule or govern Nigeria after Nigeria was conquered by her. Let me take that again for a better understanding. British system of colonialism or government in Nigeria has to do with the system of government used by Britain to rule or govern Nigeria after Nigeria was conquered by her. As we all know, Nigeria was colonized by Britain for many years, but in 1960, the country attained her independence from Britain. Before Nigeria came under British control, the British embarked on the conquest of Nigeria. During the British conquest of Nigeria, that is, when the British were conquering Nigeria, Lagos became the first territory in Nigeria to be conquered by the British. The conquest of Nigeria started with the annexation of Lagos in the year 1861. When I say Lagos was annexed in 1861, what is meant by that is that Lagos was occupied by the British. That was when the British government sent their people to come and take over the affairs of Lagos. But in 1862, Lagos became a British colony. As a British colony, Lagos, that means that Lagos came under the British control. That was when the British government took control of the affairs of Lagos. I'm talking about 1862, when Lagos became a British colony. So, after the conquest of Lagos, the British embarked on the conquest of other territory in Nigeria. By the year 1900, the whole of Nigeria came under the British control. That was when Nigeria became a British colony. As a British colony, Nigeria was conquered and fully controlled by the British. I'm talking about 1900, the year that Nigeria became a British colony. So it was after the conquest of Nigeria by the British in 1900 that the British designed a particular measure to pilot or control the affairs of Nigeria. And that particular system of government adopted by the British to rule Nigeria after the conquest of Nigeria was completed in 1900 was the system of indirect rule. So let us take a look at what is meant by indirect rule. Indirect rule was a system of government adopted by Britain to govern the whole of Nigeria after the conquest of Nigeria was completed in 1900. So when we are talking about the system of indirect rule, it was a system of government adopted by the British to rule or govern Nigeria by making use of the traditional rulers. As far as this system of government is concerned, the British did not control the affairs of Nigeria directly. Instead of doing that, they appointed the local chiefs like the warrant chiefs in the east, the emirs in the north, the obas in the south, the obas in the west, to govern their own people. The British were not directly involved in controlling the affairs of Nigeria. After Nigeria was taken over by what they did was that the traditional rulers were appointed to govern their own people on their behalf. So this system of government was introduced in Nigeria by the first Governor General of Nigeria. I'm talking about Sir Lord Lugard. It was Sir Lord Lugard that introduced this system of indirect rule in Nigeria. He introduced it in 1906 in Hausa land when he was the High Commissioner of that region. But when the Northern Protectorate was joined with the Southern Protectorate in 1914, the system of indirect rule was introduced in the whole of Nigeria to govern Nigeria. And the man that introduced this system of indirect rule is Sir Lord Lugard. That explains why Sir Lord Lugard is popularly known in Nigeria as the father of indirect rule. So that is that about the system of government adopted by the British to rule Nigeria after the conquest of Nigeria was completed in the year 1900. So that is that about the topic. So in summary, I told you in the course of my explanation that the British system of colonialism of government in Nigeria has to do with the system of government adopted or used by the British to govern Nigeria after Nigeria was conquered by her. And that particular system of government that was adopted by the British to rule Nigeria was the system of indirect rule, in which they appointed the traditional rulers to govern their own people on their behalf. The British were not directly involved in controlling the affairs of the native. What they did was that the traditional rulers were appointed. So that is that about the system of indirect rule that was used by the British to control or govern Nigeria after Nigeria was conquered by her. So when next we meet, we are going to discuss reasons for the adoption of indirect rule in Nigeria. Thanks and stay safe.